In what many are calling a political nightmare for former President Donald Trump, a seismic shift seems to be occurring in America's DeepRed States. For years, Trump has enjoyed unwavering support from these regions, cultivating a powerful base that has stood by him through every controversy, scandal, and legal challenge. But now, as the 2024 election cycle heats up, shocking new developments suggest that his iron grip on these strongholds may be slipping. From Texas to Tennessee, North Carolina to Utah, voters in traditionally conservative areas are starting to turn on Trump, and the cracks in his once impenetrable support base are becoming more apparent with each passing day. Viral videos on platforms like TikTok are showcasing a surge in disillusionment, especially among women, young voters, and longtime conservatives who are finally saying, "Enough is enough." As early voting kicks off, reports are flooding in from various parts of the country indicating a groundswell of voters rejecting Trumpism and embracing a new vision for America. One that is less chaotic, more inclusive, and focused on restoring dignity to the nation. These viral testimonies, shared by Americans across social media, are painting a vivid picture of a historic moment. DeepRed States, once thought to be untouchable, are now at risk of turning blue. Trump, once the untouchable leader of this conservative empire, is now facing a political nightmare that threatens to upend his re-election campaign. One of the most striking features of this political shift is how it's being documented. Social media, particularly TikTok, has become a hub for everyday Americans to share their voting experiences, and the stories coming out of DeepRed States are nothing short of astonishing. A viral video from a woman in a conservative area captured the mood perfectly. Standing in a crowded store, she proudly wore her "I voted" sticker, expecting scowls or dirty looks for openly declaring her support for the first woman president. Instead, she was met with smiles, thumbs-up gestures, and even some quiet affirmations of "Me Too" from other customers. This wasn't an isolated incident. More and more voters from staunchly Republican areas are reporting similar experiences. Despite the prevailing narrative that these regions remain solidly behind Trump, the reality on the ground seems to tell a different story. The signs of change are subtle but unmistakable, a quiet yet powerful undercurrent of dissatisfaction that is spreading like wildfire. In Texas, one of the reddest states in the union, a voter shared her experience from early voting. She described the long lines, the excited conversations in the queue, and the palpable energy among the voters. What was most surprising, however, was how few Trump hats and shirts she saw, a stark contrast to previous elections where MAGA gear was everywhere. "I think we're going to have a blue tsunami," she said confidently, reflecting the optimism that many in traditionally conservative areas are beginning to feel. The emotional shift, voters fired up like never before. For years, Democrats have struggled to motivate their base in DeepRed States, often facing low voter turnout and a sense of hopelessness among those who felt their votes didn't matter. But in 2024, something has changed. Across Tennessee, North Carolina, and other conservative strongholds, voters are reporting record turnout, with many describing emotional, even tear-filled experiences as they cast their ballots. One woman from Tennessee, a self-described super voter, shared a particularly moving story. After decades of voting in elections with little fanfare, she arrived at her polling place to find it packed with voters, many of whom were first-timers. The energy in the room was electric, and when poll workers announced each first-time voter with a cheer, the entire room erupted in applause. This was no ordinary election. It felt like a movement. Similar stories have emerged from other parts of the country. In western North Carolina, a father and daughter shared a video of their voting experience, proudly displaying their "I voted" stickers and urging others to get out and do the same. "Let's save this country," they said, a sentiment that has been echoed by countless others who feel that this election represents a pivotal moment in the nation's history. The Texas turnaround, "We're not going back." Perhaps no state exemplifies the growing disillusionment with Trumpism better than Texas. Once a GOP stronghold, Texas has seen a dramatic shift in political attitudes over the past few years, and the 2024 election is proving to be a watershed moment. Early voting lines have stretched for hours, with reports of energized voters determined to make their voices heard. A viral video from a Texas voter captured the mood perfectly. After waiting in line for hours, she proudly declared that she had cast her vote for Vice President Kamala Harris, adding, "We're not going back." Her defiance was palpable, and it reflected the broader sentiment among many Texans who feel that Trump's chaotic presidency has left the country worse off. The excitement in her voice was contagious as she predicted that Texas would go blue in this election, a prospect that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. Another Texas voter, a Navy veteran, was equally blunt in his assessment. In a viral TikTok video, he declared, "Donald Trump? F. him," making it clear that his support for the former president had evaporated. His message was simple but powerful. Trump no longer represents the values that many conservatives once held dear. Women leading the charge, a surge in female voters. One of the most significant trends in this election cycle is the surge in women voters, many of whom are turning out in record numbers to reject Trumpism. Across the country, women are sharing emotional stories about what it means to vote in this election, often describing it as a deeply personal and powerful experience. In Tennessee, a woman broke down in tears after casting her ballot, explaining how important it was for her to vote in a state that has long been gerrymandered to suppress Democratic turnout. For her, this election wasn't just about politics. It was about fighting for the future of her children and ensuring that they grow up in a country that values equality, decency, and democracy. Similarly, a woman from Texas shared her emotional experience of voting while teaching her daughter the importance of standing up for one's rights. "I want to teach her that love and not hate will win this election," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Her message resonated with countless others who see this election as a battle for the soul of America. A blue wave on the horizon? While it's too early to predict the final outcome of the 2024 election, the signs of a growing backlash against Trump in DeepRed States are becoming impossible to ignore. Across the country, there is a sense that something monumental is happening. Long lines at polling places, emotional testimonies from first-time voters, and a palpable shift in the political mood all point to a potential sea change in American politics. In the past, Trump could count on these conservative strongholds to carry him to victory, but now, even in his most loyal territories, cracks are beginning to show. The viral videos pouring in from across the nation paint a picture of a country ready for change, with voters in DeepRed States leading the charge. Donald Trump's dominance over the Republican Party and his unwavering support from DeepRed States has been a defining feature of American politics for nearly a decade. But as the 2024 election unfolds, it's becoming increasingly clear that his grip on these regions is slipping. Voters who once stood by him through thick and thin are now rethinking their allegiance, and the tide appears to be turning in places that were once considered Trump's political strongholds. This political nightmare for Trump is compounded by the fact that much of the opposition is coming from within, longtime Republicans, veterans, and women who once supported him but are now rejecting his divisive politics in favor of a more inclusive and hopeful vision for the future. As the nation approaches Election Day, one thing is clear: the winds of change are blowing, and they're sweeping through the DeepRed States that Trump once counted on for an easy victory. Whether or not this will result in a blue wave remains to be seen, but the signs of a political revolution are already here, and they're impossible to ignore. The nightmare is real for Donald Trump, and it's only just beginning.